Once upon a time, in a small village nestled among towering mountains, there lived a 24-year-old young man named Marco. On the outside, Marco's life seemed ordinary, just like anyone else's. But on the inside, his mind was never at rest. Thoughts kept appearing endlessly, overlapping one another with no clear stopping point. One thought followed another, coming and going like strong winds, leaving Marco constantly exhausted and weighed down. Marco often found himself drowning in painful memories of the past. He blamed himself for mistakes he had made and for opportunities he had missed. At the same time, he worried endlessly about the future, afraid of failure, afraid of loneliness, afraid that life would not follow the path he had hoped for. These thoughts became like a storm inside his head, making his mind restless and tense, because he could not control this stream of thoughts. Marco slowly lost the ability to enjoy life. He slept poorly and often woke up in the middle of the night. His smile gradually disappeared, replaced by a lasting sense of sadness and fatigue. Even though he lived amid peaceful nature, his heart could not find calm. Marco began to wonder whether there was a way to escape this state, some path that could lead him back to the quietness he had lost long ago. One day, in the middle of his never-ending, restless thoughts, Marco happened to hear a story about a distant village in the quiet hills. People said that a very wise old man lived there. In the past, he had been a famous psychologist in a large city and had helped countless people overcome mental struggles and regain balance in their lives. After many years of living amid the noise and pressure of urban life, the old man decided to leave everything behind and choose a simple life close to nature. He settled in a small village surrounded by hills, where the air was always calm, and made it his final home. There he lived quietly in a small house covered in greenery, spending most of his time meditating and listening to the breath of the earth and sky. From time to time, travelers or people carrying unrest in their hearts would come to seek his advice. He never spoke at length, nor did he judge anyone. He simply listened and gently pointed out the things each person already possessed within themselves but had never noticed. When Marco heard this story, a spark of hope suddenly ignited in his heart. He felt as if he had found a way out of the fog of chaotic thoughts. Marco told himself that no matter how far or exhausting the journey might be, he had to try at least once. Perhaps meeting this wise old man would help him find the peace he had long been longing for. After many days of crossing long and rugged roads, Marco finally reached the village in the quiet hills. The journey was far from easy. At times he felt so tired that he almost wanted to give up, but deep in his heart, a silent hope kept pushing him forward. When he arrived, Marco immediately sensed the difference. The place was strangely quiet, with only the soft sound of wind passing through the trees and the gentle scent of wild grass in the air. In front of him stood a small, simple house covered with green vines. Everything around it radiated a sense of calm and slowness. On the porch, the wise old man sat silently, his eyes gently closed, his posture serene, as if untouched by the outside world. His kind face radiated tranquility, causing Marco to instinctively lower his voice as he approached. With complete sincerity, Marco softly poured out his heart. He spoke of his restless mind, of the endless thoughts that drained his energy, robbed him of sleep, and took away his joy in life. He bowed his head, hoping for guidance that could help him rediscover peace within his soul. The old man slowly opened his eyes, looked at Marco with warmth, and smiled. Without saying much, simply through his calm presence, he made Marco feel lighter. Then he gently invited Marco to walk with him and promised to give him a small, task one, that might help Marco find the answer he had been searching for all along. The old man led Marco into the small garden behind the house. It was simple yet full of life, with soft sunlight touching the ground and green plants swaying in the breeze. He slowly poured water into a glass until it was filled to the very top. The surface of the water was perfectly still. Even a slight movement could make it spill. Placing the glass in Marco's hands, the old man gently said, "Carry this glass of water from here to the end of the village, and then come back. But remember, you must not spill even a single drop." Marco looked at the glass in surprise. He could not understand how such a simple task could help solve the chaos in his mind. Still, he nodded and accepted, because deep down he truly wanted to change. Marco began walking carefully. The village road was not as quiet as he had imagined. People passed by, some hurrying, others chatting cheerfully. Small shops called out to customers, and somewhere a dog barked. Yet Marco paid no attention to any of it. His eyes were fixed only on the glass in his hands. Each step was slow and steady. He adjusted his breathing, kept his hands firm, and allowed no distraction, not even for a moment. For the first time in a very long while, the chaotic thoughts in Marco's mind seemed to settle. All that existed now was the present moment and the full glass of water he was carrying. After completing the assigned path, Marco slowly returned to the old man's house. Standing on the porch, he let out a deep sigh of relief and raised the glass as proof of his effort. The water was still completely full, not a single drop spilled. With a face both tired and light, Marco said that he had done exactly as instructed. The old man looked at Marco with satisfaction, nodded gently, and smiled. Then he asked a seemingly simple question. "On your way, did you see the children playing by the roadside? Did you hear the dogs barking, or people calling to one another?" Marco was momentarily stunned. After thinking for a while, he shook his head and honestly replied that he had seen nothing and heard nothing at all. Marco realized that throughout the entire journey, he had focused all his attention solely on the glass of water in his hands. All the sounds and images around him had simply disappeared from his awareness. At that moment, the old man gently explained that it was this complete focus that had made Marco's mind quiet. When Marco lived only in the present moment without thinking about the past or worrying about the future, his mind naturally became calm. There was no space left for fear, confusion, or unnecessary thoughts. Marco began to understand that the peace he had been searching for had actually appeared throughout that very journey. The moment he truly became present with each step, the old man's gentle words flowed into Marco's mind like cool water. For the first time in a long while, everything felt clear. Marco gradually understood that peace was not something distant or difficult to find. It was not hidden in new places, nor did it come from escaping life. It had always existed within every person. The old man explained that when the mind wanders between old memories and worries that have not yet happened, people create suffering for themselves. But when one learns to return to the present moment and focus on what is happening right now, the mind naturally settles. This was exactly the state Marco had experienced while holding the glass of water. Marco quietly nodded. He could feel a change taking place within him. A sense of lightness and warmth spread throughout his body. He bowed his head in gratitude and said that now he understood, if he wanted to calm his mind, he needed to learn to keep it in the present moment, not let it be pulled into the past or drift into the future. The sun slowly disappeared behind the hills, and the golden light of sunset covered the surroundings. Birds chirped as they returned to their nests in the quiet sky. Marco began his journey home, but this time he was no longer the restless young man he once was. Inside him now was calm and new understanding. He had found a way to guide his mind and nurture peace from within. On the road home, Marco walked slowly through the landscape as evening approached. Each step felt lighter and steadier than before. The racing thoughts that once swept him away were gone, replaced by a sense of awareness and peace in every moment. Marco realized that the greatest change was not in his surroundings, but in the way he saw and experienced life. Marco understood that the mind is like water. When stirred by fear and worry, it becomes cloudy and chaotic. But when one knows how to stop, observe, and live fully in the present, the water naturally settles and becomes clear. The lesson of the glass of water was simple, yet it left a deep mark on him, a reminder that peace is always available, waiting for us to return and recognize it. From that day on, Marco began applying this lesson to his daily life. Whether he was working, walking, or talking with others, he tried to be fully present with whatever he was doing. Whenever his mind started to wander, he gently brought his attention back to his breath and the present moment. Marco's story did not end with his personal journey alone. It became a simple yet profound message for anyone who feels exhausted from thinking too much. Peace is not something to be searched for outside. It appears the moment we learn to slow down, become aware, and live fully in this very moment. Marco's story came to an end, but the lesson he received continued to echo long afterward. It reminds us that in a life full of pressure and disturbance, people often forget one important thing. The mind needs guidance, not freedom to drag us into worry and fear. When we do not control our thoughts end up controlling our emotions and our lives. Marco once believed that peace was something to be found in a distant place, from another person or through a new situation. In the end, he realized that peace had always been within him. By simply stopping and focusing on the present, the mind naturally becomes lighter and quieter. This story is not only for Marco, it is for anyone who feels tired, lost, or trapped in a cycle of negative thinking. If you are living in the past or worrying too much about the future, try returning to the present moment, the only place where life truly exists. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you found value in it, please share it with those you care about. Don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring stories. See you again in the next story with new lessons and deeper reflections. May you always remain peaceful and steady on your journey. Marco's story ends with a gentle yet profound awakening. It is not a grand miracle or a complex secret, but a return to the simplest thing of all, the present moment. In the rush of daily life, people often let their minds run too fast, carrying countless worries, fears, and exhaustion. We forget that awareness and presence are the true keys that open the door to peace. Marco learned to observe his mind, instead of letting it control his life. When he learned to stop and focus on each step and each breath, he realized that sadness and worry slowly faded away, not because life became perfect, but because the way he was present in life had changed. The message of this story is for anyone who feels mentally overwhelmed. If you are stuck in thoughts about the past or anxious about the future, try slowing down for a moment. Pay attention to what you are doing right now. In that very moment, you will find the calm you have been searching for. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If it brought you even a small moment of reflection or inspiration, please share it with others. Don't forget to follow for more meaningful stories. May you always keep peace in your mind and live fully in every moment of your life. Marco's story has ended. The journey of awareness he began continues. The most valuable thing Marco carried with him was not the old man's advice or the challenge of the glass of water, a new understanding of himself. He realized that the mind, if not guided, will wander endlessly and create suffering. But when observed and brought back to the present, it becomes a gentle companion. Marco understood that life is not always smooth. Difficulties, pressure, and challenges will still appear. However, he no longer feared them as he once did. He had learned to face everything with clarity and calm. Whenever his mind began to shake, he simply paused, took a deep breath, focused on the present moment. This story sends us a simple yet powerful message. You do not need to change the whole world to find peace. You only need to change the way you are present in it. When you live fully in the present, the past will no longer pull you down, and the future will no longer fill you with fear. If today you feel tired, remember Marco and the glass of water. Slow down a little. Pay attention to your breath, to your steps, because peace is not far away. It begins right here, in this very moment.